When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time fantasizing about being a Power Ranger. In my head, I would choreograph fight scenes, imagining all the different ways that my friends and I would team up to take down the bad guys. In the second grade, I got a ninja sword and a Red Ranger mask for Christmas and played with them every day until they finally broke. To say the least, I was obsessed with Power Rangers, and I know I'm not the only one. Fast forward nearly 2 decades to 2018, and the 25th anniversary of Power Rangers is upon us. To celebrate, they released a special episode commemorating the occasion, new DVDs and comic books, and a brand new fighting game? While many assume that a fighting game was probably just a rush job trying to cash in on nostalgia, some were pleasantly surprised to find that under the hood, this new fighting game was good. Really, really good. So today, we're going to take a look at Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. And before we start, I've got just one question for you. What time is it?
It's morphin' time! Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power
Power Rangers Battle for the Grid was developed by nWay Games and released on March 25th, 2019. As far as fighting games go, BFTG is pretty simple. It's like most other 2D fighters, except instead of using a single character like in Street Fighter, you have a team of 3 characters, who can be called upon to assist whoever you're currently using, or swapped out completely to change up the pace of the match. A player is defeated when all 3 of their characters are incapacitated.
So take a more simplified Marvel 3, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Take a more simplified version of that game. Cool movement, all that stuff. Just think of it more simplified and more grounded. With Power Rangers characters.
The game is a very, very much heavy versus game. It puts a large emphasis on your use of assists and sort of a fluid sense of team dynamic. So it really sticks out among traditional versus games, not only due to its complete freeness through its tag system, but it's also a grounded based versus game, which isn't very common.
Battle for the Grid has a few unique mechanics, like calling in a Megazord when you're losing, but for the most part, the game does away with many of the complexities found in other fighting games. Inputs have been simplified to directional button presses, meaning no charge moves or quarter circles, and the game focuses on grounded fighting. Unlike Marvel or Dragon Ball FighterZ, where many combos take place in the air and have players juggling their opponent 50 feet off the ground. Because of this, Power Rangers is much more accessible to those who are new to the fighting game scene, as they can pick up and learn the game fairly quickly and can actually see what's happening on screen. Unfortunately, the game wasn't an instant success in the FGC. Compared to the release of Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 years earlier, BFTG went pretty much unnoticed by most of the gaming community. And a lot of this had to do with the game's lack of content and unpolished gameplay. As Mitchell Saltzman of IGN writes in his initial review of the game, quote, "This nostalgia fest has the look of a free-to-play mobile game, a complete lack of voice acting, a bare-bones set of modes and features, only 9 characters, only 5 stages, repetitive and generic music, all on top of the stigma of being based off a licensed property not known for having a great video game track record." That stigma Saltzman is talking about is the stigma of games based on movies or television shows. Typically, they're a cash grab with very little substance, and many expected Battle for the Grid to be no different. But Saltzman's statement is followed up saying, quote, "Against all odds, underneath all of that, beats the heart of a fighting system developed with thought, care, and an obvious love for 2D tag fighting games." That last part should come as no surprise, given the people who were involved in bringing the game to life. Battle for the Grid was developed under the stewardship of gameplay designers Long Tran and Daniel Maniago, better known in the fighting game community as Shady K and Clockwork. They're both veterans of the Marvel vs. Capcom scene and brought in guys like Justin Wong to playtest and balance everything, making sure that the game was up to par for pros and Joes alike.
So actually, the game developer, you might know who he is. Shady K. He's actually Marvel vs. Capcom 3 player, and also Clockwork. He was an MVC2 god, MVC3 player as well. And Justin Wong also had partook in design as well. So they all came from the Marvel scene, which I already knew who they were, which actually added to my excitement of picking up the game. Devs are so involved from other fighting games, and they all try to just like put it into Battle for the Grid, and so far it's working really, really well.
But upon release, the game was buggy, to say the least.
On release, this game was a mess. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I'm just keeping it 100. The game was so bad on release. Like, you couldn't block low. There was a lot of infinites, a lot of like basically ways to kind of like cheat the juggle limiter. The game on release was pretty bad.
On top of gameplay issues like infinites and janky hitboxes, there just wasn't very much content in the game. They only included 9 characters on launch, and for a game celebrating the anniversary of a 25-year running show, which has had 28 seasons and countless reboots, 9 characters is almost laughable, especially given that a large portion of the casual player base would be buying the game not for its polished gameplay, but just to play as their favorite rangers and villains. But to its credit, Battle for the Grid managed to survive, mainly due to its rock-solid fundamentals. The gameplay was smooth, and the characters, while few, were unique and fun to play.
So it feels like every single character in the game is completely different from the other. There's very few things that are just completely universal, and it's just every character has such a sense of uniqueness to them that really makes it feel like you're truly playing different characters.
Thankfully for Power Rangers fans everywhere, the dev team didn't abandon hope when things weren't going well. In fact, they doubled down and worked as hard as possible to fix bugs and generate new content. For those who were patient, they've been rewarded with the experience they always wanted. Since release, the roster has more than doubled and currently sits at 21 playable characters. The bugs and issues that plague the game have mostly been addressed and fixed, and the game has a competitive scene that is coming into its own. After its subpar launch, one might wonder how a game like Battle for the Grid can expect to generate enough hype to compete against the likes of Dragon Ball FighterZ and BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle. Well, there's something that Battle for the Grid has going for it that very few other titles do. Good netcode.
Compared to other online fighting games like Fighter Z, you can't play Fighter Z online. This game, we're literally playing people from other countries, and it runs fine. Like, there's almost no issues.
I think like not being able to have a way to play online consistently with someone in a good, solid connection where things are reactable is not very fun. But with Battle for the Grid, like they have a really nice rollback net play system that they implemented in its crossplay. So it's just really smooth. It's really fun. And most of the community is online too, which is really nice.
Being able to compete online while the rest of the FGC has struggled to stay afloat has been a godsend for the fledgling community. And the developers have even started running a professional league for the game. The official Battle for the Grid League is a circuit where players earn points by participating in sanctioned tournaments. Any third-party tournament with enough attendees can apply to be sanctioned by the league, meaning that there have been tons of opportunities for players to compete. The more tournaments you attend, and the higher you place at those tournaments, the more points you earn. At the end of the season, whoever sits atop the league goes home with $15,000 in their pocket. Not bad for a relatively small title. But there is one unexpected consequence of having a professional league, excellent netcode, and an incredibly dedicated community. During the pandemic, the community has been hosting so many competitions that players are starting to burn out.
So far, the community has been really great to work with, and we keep growing every day. It actually got to a point where, like, I think in between August, September, and November, we were having tournaments almost every day, every weekend, and the community started gassing out. It's just because there's so much stuff you can do, and there's a lot of stuff that the Battle for the Grid community is doing that no other community is doing.
Because of this, organizers have begun hosting events within the community that aren't so focused on being purely competitive.
My friend Mega Isaac actually started this underground fighting game scene for Battle for the Grid, and what we actually do on the side with the players is we do rap battles. So whenever everybody's down, like, hey, if you want to call out somebody in a rap battle, do it, and then we'll host a basically like a rap battle night where like we'll run sets with each other, and then eventually we'll bring up both tracks, and then there'll be a rap battle. And it's been like the coolest thing. And we've even had other people come into the community who don't play the game. They're like, dude, nobody else is doing this. Like, what you guys are doing is fire. The Battlefield Geek community kind of just takes stuff, like, not just about the game, but they bring other aspects into the game as well. Like, for example, we have our biggest influencers of the game are actually wrestling fans. So, beginning of the next month, this streamer called Uchi Games, he's actually hosting a Royal Rumble Battle for the Grid King of the Hill style tournament. It's sick. 2 people are gonna pull up to a lobby. They play first to 2. Whoever wins, then number 3 goes in, and we're all gonna have like our own intro songs. And it's just there's so many influencers and so many content creators that are doing so much unique stuff that you just don't see in any other fighting game community, which is what I love about it.
But at the end of the day, fighting game communities live or die through their competitive scene. And BFTG is no different. And among its myriad of competitors, there's one person who has risen above the rest.
Can't mention, best players in the scene without going immediately to Fear Chimera. He's been so dominant in this game for so long that it's just, there is no talk of best players if he's not the first person that comes out of your mouth.
Crescent Chimera is a player whose record is almost unbelievable. At every major he has attended, he's placed in the top 3 and has won most of them. Currently, he sits at the top of the BFTG League leaderboard with more than 1,000 points on the second place player. A true student of the game, Chimera has trained endlessly, labbing out combos and attending tournaments, and for most of the game's lifespan, he has been considered to be the best in the world. But there is another player. While not as active in the competitive scene, YLT Cole has dug down to the roots of Battle for the Grid and has consistently managed to figure out the best way to whoop anyone in his path.
I think in every season he's been active in the game, where like a new patch comes out where things change, he has always shaped the meta for the game, and then he wins as well. I think that too kind of factors in, is that when he enters events, he wins everything.
So it was probably bad news for the rest of the community when Chimera and Cole decided to become regular training partners, pushing each other to new heights like Goku and Vegeta. But the community also has its fair share of up-and-coming players vying for the throne.
Established names, you can't go without mentioning SDK, Skills to Kills. He's been in this community forever. He won the Bar Fights Evo tournament for this game in 2019.
Akuragi Itsune as well. He's not a new player. He's been playing for a long time, but he's getting really, really good. And he throws events too, like he hosts events, which I think is awesome.
Many of these competitors have been grinding, practicing, and competing non-stop, trying to take their shot at the #1 spot. Fortunately for them, the community had its biggest tournament of the year, and everyone brought their A-game to try and take home the crown. Frosty Faustings 13. Capping out at 120 players, the bracket was filled to the brim with killers. In winner's side, Cole was knocked into losers by Glitchy Cobra, and she almost managed to defeat Chimera as well. In top 8, The Game, Skills That Kills, Evasion, Mega Isaac, and Jackal all made an attempt to get into finals through the losers bracket, but were ultimately cut short. After a tight match that went the distance between Glitchy Cobra and Cole in losers finals, YLT Cole came out on top, and it was time for the match that everyone had been waiting for. Crescent Chimera versus YLT Cole. The two training partners, two titans of the scene, were about to face off in grand finals. After Cole managed to reset the bracket by winning the first set, Chimera decided it was time to crank up the heat. With more than 2,000 viewers watching on Twitch, Chimera plowed through the first 2 matches in the second set of grands, and then decided that he was about to send a message, ending the tournament with 3 fully healthy characters and making sure everyone at home knew who the King of Power Rangers really was.
Fear Chimera, energized by the raid. This is Fear Chimera.
A true power-up indeed, and your brand new Frosty Fausting champion for the Battle for the Grid League, Crescent Chimera. Wow.
But the fight is still on. And over the next couple of months, you can expect to see more competitions like this and more players trying to dethrone the king. Against all odds, this community has managed to thrive under very difficult circumstances.
not only is Battle for the Grid one of the most accessible, it's one of the most fun. It's the most accessible while being like extremely complex at the same time. And on top of that, you have good netcode and a good community. I think if you just if you're looking for something new to play that isn't like Street Fighter, isn't like Tekken, isn't like something super big with a super big pro tour, just give Battle for the Grid a try.
The community is wonderful. It is genuinely one of the best communities in the FGC. I say that without a question in my mind. How our community is just the biggest reason for our game's growth, really.
There are a lot of fighting games out there, almost all of which are loved by their communities unconditionally. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is no different, and is full of dedicated competitors, tournament organizers, and lovers of both fighting games and Power Rangers itself. For anyone looking to get into a new fighting game, I think I speak for much of the community when I say Battle for the Grid is one worth checking out.
The game is really, really fun. It's easy to pick up. It's very, very affordable. And what other better way to, learn a fighting game on rollback netcode during COVID, It's going to keep you busy. And and this is only the beginning. It's going to keep getting updated. I promise you, we got more content coming.
Completely. Here comes Cenozoic Blue. This is very important for Sundula. Release the power, spend that cash, go to game 5. Fulfill your destiny. What time is it, Frankie? It's Morphin time. Let's go. Oh my God.
I'd like to extend a special thank you to Fear Chimera, Glitchy Cobra, and Coup d'etat for sitting down and talking with us about their wonderful community. Their social media links are in the description below, and if you want to keep up with some of the best players in the community, these guys are a pretty good place to start. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason, Foxy, Lyra, Mauve, Nate, Nathan, Sierra, Shoopy, Shampoo, Weeboo, Spartacus, and Karantal for being platinum supporters. As well as an extra special shout out to Mookie, Noodles, Marco, and Steven for being diamond supporters. That was a lot of names to read, and we love every one of you. If you also want to support our channel and unlock perks, check out the Patreon link in the description below, or join our Discord server, where we take suggestions for videos like this one. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.